trip to another world demands a great deal of training and expertise. Those who flew to the moon trained for years for their own missions, but many of them already had flight in their blood.
Oh, this is really profound. I'll tell you, this is absolutely mind-boggling up here.
All of our background and all of our experience led into being selected for the crew and then beginning the training. But the training really began back when we were probably teenagers and started thinking about it.
Dave had trained hard for 2 years for this particular mission to the foothills of the Apennine mountain range. With mission partner Jim Irwin, he spent 3 days exploring the region around the landing site, travelling around on the first lunar rover to be flown to the moon.
Okay, we're moving forward, Joe. Roger.
The most ambitious Apollo mission at that stage pushed the talents and skills of all those involved to their limits.
It was very, very difficult. And we had at one point 400,000 people working on the program on a single objective, and it was not easy to do. So when you look at a trip of this magnitude, it would be very difficult. Take a lot of people and a lot of talent.
And at the top of this pyramid of people are the 5 astronauts who will execute this complex mission. A mission commander, a flight engineer, a medical doctor, a geologist, and a life scientist.
I'm playing a guy called Tom Kirby, and he's the commander of the Pegasus.
Event timer countdown to Transmars injection in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
He's also, and probably a more important task in terms of picking the right people, he's got to deal with the interpolation of all these different personalities for 6 years in a very confined space.
I'm playing a Russian cosmonaut, Ivan Grigoriev, whose principal role is engineer.
Господи, bloody tool.
I play Zoe Lassard, who's a Canadian geologist.
It's a spectrum of browns, ochres, and deep, deep reds. Appear to be allotropes of sulfur. These are primitive lava flows, all right. It's a throwback to Earth's early history. I'm standing on a silicate crust. It's covering the sulfur in places, but it's weak. My feet are breaking through.
I play the character Nina Sulman, and I mean, she's just interested in finding life.
Gotcha.
Her big planet is Mars. She really wants to be able to explore the liquid water there and maybe find some kind of life there.
I play John Pearson. He's the medical officer. Bones, I think, would be the equivalent for if we're going to have a Star Trek reference, which we're not allowed to do.
You're doing a great job, Zoe. That suit is a disaster. It's too heavy. There's too much radiation getting through.
The thing about these astronauts, these proper astronauts who we're trying to emulate, is that very often they are, I mean, they're clever people, but their cleverness takes different forms. So, for example, John is a geologist. To have a specialist area of interest and then also to have another one and another one is very impressive, and I do take my hat off to them.
With years to train most astronauts and just weeks for our actors to convince us they've got the right stuff, there's a lot of catching up to do. And it began back in the classroom with an intensive week of lectures and exercises to give them a crash course in spaceflight and planetary science. In the following days and weeks, French cosmonaut Jean-Pierre Haggard, who'd lived on board the Mir space station for 6 months, and Dave Scott, commander of the Apollo 15 mission to the moon, came to share their experiences with the actors. These 5 needed to feel like they'd trained and lived together for years.
The NAV team has saved the day.
Team building exercises at the UK's National Space Centre in Leicester ensured that they could work together under pressure. Physical fitness is also important. Astronauts are typically as fit as Formula One drivers or marathon runners. They need to endure the extremes of gravity needed for the mission. The experience was crowned by a trip to Star City, home to the Russian cosmonaut training program for over 40 years. It holds a unique place in human spaceflight history.
Wow, Chris.
It's impressive.
From my point of view, probably the most humbling experience was Russia, was going to Star City. I mean, it tells the story about where the way that Russians do the space.
Juggling time with the next team that were heading to the International Space Station, our own crew spent time training in the giant water tank used to simulate zero-gravity spacewalks, experiencing the other extremes of gravity in their giant centrifuge, and learning to fly the Russian Soyuz spacecraft in the simulators. And of course, getting used to real weightlessness.